Hello, and welcome to today's Wednesday Wellness Chat. I'm Dr. Michelle Fritsch. I'm here with Propel Comprehensive Wellness, and we're so glad that you've joined us, either live or you're watching this recording later. We have been talking a lot about stress in the last few sessions, and we talked about uncertain times, and it feels like times are getting even more uncertain in a lot of ways. We've also talked about, in my own family, a health issue that we've been navigating for nearly 2 months, and how much we've put to use all of the skills that are needed to really navigate and advocate in the healthcare system, and the amount of stress that that can bring and how to manage that. And I know a lot of you are navigating issues, whether they be health or otherwise, within your families. So as we get started, let's practice one of the things that we've talked about. And you're going to find that if we do this before we really get started, it will actually help you remember what we talk about. So we're going to do some box breathing. And if this is your first time to hear about that or to be with us as we do that, I'll explain it and then we will do it. So we're going to breathe in. It seems to be most effective either through your nose or with the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth. You're going to take a deep breath, filling your chest and your belly. And we're going to do that over a count of four. And then we're going to just hold it there for a count of four. And then you're going to breathe out like you're breathing through a straw, slowly. We're going to do that for four, and then just hold for four, and we'll go around the box twice. So if you're ready, either through your nose or with the tongue and the tip of your tongue and the roof of your mouth, take that big breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're going to breathe out through the straw. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to go again. Breathe in through your nose or with the tongue and the roof of your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Has anyone tried that? Have you been in a meeting or a stressful situation and just stopped and done some deep breathing or some box breathing? Anything you want to tell us about?
It just relaxes you.
It does. And something that we are going to talk about today is how easily we can just forget things. You know, you might have even been planning what you want to talk about or what you're planning to do, and then poof, it is gone. And overall, I'm hearing people talk about that's happening more often. And there are so many factors when that happens. But one of those driving factors is stress. And there's an actual physiologic mechanism. You know, our brains are fascinating. So many elements of how they work, how they release communication messages, these neurotransmitters, how they produce neurotransmitters, what is sort of driving decision making at different times. It is fascinating. And I want to do just a little bit of neurology to explain one element of it. Most of our deep and thoughtful thinking that includes our ability to study things and remember them and even recall them, a lot of that is driven through the big part of our brain. And if you look, it's a really big, meaty part of your brain up here. That is the part that is the part we want to be in most of the time. We want most of our life to be in that part of our brain. And the breathing exercises, that's one of the things they do, is calm all that activity in there so that this part of the brain can be the part that's making the decisions. It's helping you really think about what you're doing.
Hmm.
There's other parts of the brain, and one of the critical ones is the amygdala, which looks like a little walnut, and the hippocampus, and it's more in the base of your brain. It's a little bit more of a common part of the brain that other animals and such share with us, and it's a critical part for survival. It is the part that stimulates and drives your brain activity when you're highly stressed. But it was created for episodic, once in a blue moon kinds of stress. Like you're out taking a beautiful walk in the woods and are suddenly chased by a bear kind of stress. So that suddenly your muscles are innervated and you're in this fight or flight mode. I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to get out of this situation. And those are times when you see people have unusual strength or unusual speed, and they're able to get away from whatever's causing the problem. And then once that crisis is gone, then you calm back down and you go back to the part of your brain that should be doing the thinking and making the decisions. What's happening in our society today is there are more and more things that are stimulating that amygdala that are making us think we're in danger and leaving us in that heightened mode where we've got to get out of this, we've got to solve this. And often when people feel like they can't remember things, they are in some level of stress mode. Even one that I see just in my profession in healthcare is people will have things they want to talk to us about in a clinical visit, in a doctor visit. And they come in and they know what they want to talk about. They're thinking about it in the waiting room as they're relaxed. You're taken into the room and somebody like gets your blood pressure and you wait, and then you sit there for a while and you can think about, these are the things that I want to ask about and the things I want to talk about. And then that big provider, you get the knock on the door and whoosh, they're in the room and they're talking to you and it feels like everything's going really, really, really fast. And woof, that has left your brain. And you know there's something else you wanted to talk about, but it is gone. Has this ever happened to anyone?
I'm so glad I'm not the only one.
Oh, it's it's just a little.
I have to write everything down.
So that is critical to things that you want to talk
Yeah,
about,
that's a
and
good
whether it's
idea.
that, yeah, whether it's a doctor visit, an important appointment of any kind, you know, your financial planner or your lawyer or your kids, and you're making plans for next week's picnic, to write those things down so you're not trying to remember them on the spot really helps, because it is common that when you're feeling a little more stressed that you're not able to access those really important memories. And studies have been done that the more emotional the thing you're trying to remember, the harder it is to remember it. So if you're in a situation where you're talking about the health of yourself or a loved one, that often is more of an emotional type of thing that you're wanting to talk about. Even harder to remember those things than if it was, you know, what vegetable are we having with dinner tonight? It's a completely different level of memory, harder to obtain. So stress is just an enormous part of our forgetfulness that we're all experiencing as a society. So I encourage you to use the techniques we've talked about, and I'll just review a few of those. The breathing is huge, whether it's the box breathing or just the really deep inhale and the slow exhale. Being able to think about things that you find soothing and beautiful as you're doing your breathing rather than the things that you're worried about. but focusing on more positive things. Having fidgets. I don't know if you do. I've got things all around me, things that you can just sort of play with. Sometimes that can help reduce stress. Some people carry things in their pockets, or I had a grandfather, he was constantly playing with the coins in his pocket. It was just something that he did, and that tactile can actually have a soothing effect. Before it gets cold, go outside in your bare feet in the grass and just feel how good that feels. Things that just sort of allow you to let go of all the stresses, bring it back down. A number of people have been talking about taking time to unplug from everything, because we are constantly in front of screens, getting phone calls, getting texts, getting sort of disruptions. It is a-okay and healthy to shut it all off, keep it far, far away from you, and just have time without it. That allows your brain to almost reset itself so that you're not quite oversensitive to things, especially to stresses. So, stress management, item number 1 for when you feel like your memory is slipping. Another one, I'll tell you, if you're finding that it's consistent and you're having harder and harder time of recalling names, of getting things done, of remembering what you wanted to do, if you feel like it's really at a not just a stress thing, and you've tried to manage the stress and you're still struggling, there are a bunch of things we can do on the medical side to just double check that things are as they should be. We can make sure your heart's functioning as it should, make sure your brain is getting enough oxygen by checking the blood flow in your carotid arteries to your brain. We can make sure that your electrolytes and your vitamin levels are where they need to be. They can make sure your thyroid is as it should be, because our thyroid can go from normal to not so normal at any age or stage of our life. So before you give yourself up to, oof, I'm never going to remember things again, let your primary care doctor know. There's a bunch of things that they can check that are fixable to help improve your memory if one of those is the reason you're struggling. Another one is depression. And I know a lot of people are struggling with depression, but depression can mimic memory loss or dementia. And so I've seen so many people over time who thought they had dementia, but once we could resolve depression, then they were feeling much better and they were able to remember things better and engage better and have the energy to choose to pull their brain function from the fight or flight back to the front part of their brain. There's some choice there, some ability to drive that and to control your own brain. But it takes some motivation to do that that's sometimes lacking in depression. So I've talked about anxiety, depression, physical things. Then I just want to touch on medications. I'm a pharmacist. I've board certified in geriatrics. This has been something that I've done so many times. People feel like they can't function anymore. And then we make a couple of medication adjustments and we get their cognitive brain function back where it needs to be. So often it's just an adjustment of medications, whether it's doses or the medications you're taking that really help get your sharp thinking back. Very often that's the case. Stacy, did you say something? Did I cut you off?
No, you didn't. You didn't cut me off.
Okay, good. So then the next one is if you're actively managing the stress, you're sure it's not depression, you've talked to your primary care doctor, everything seems to be in order, it's not medications, maybe not even taking medications or supplements. Keep in mind, it doesn't have to be a prescription medicine, but over-the-counter medicines, supplements, substances like cannabis, kratom, some of the things that you can get, those can impact your sharp thinking as well. So if it's none of those things, then perhaps you go to a neurologist for additional testing for causes of memory loss. But that is really, I just want you to be hopeful that if you're having trouble remembering things, there are a lot of very tangible, fixable things that we can address long before we get to the point of even considering if it's dementia. And there's some data that's been coming out more recently that your risk of dementia goes up with chronic stress. So we all have even more reasons to find ways to take control of our stress, even when things happen that is beyond our control. And I know some of you have a lot of things going on. We still, for ourselves, can choose to get through those by managing and keeping our stress levels lower. So I hate to keep harping on stress, but it's at the key of so many things that we individually and as a society are experiencing. So I'd love to know, what questions do you have, or what comments, input do you have?
Well, I'll start. Hi, I'm Anita.
Hey, Anita.
I had no idea that all those things could make you be a little forgetful. So it's good to know that versus thinking, oh my gosh, I'm, 62 and I'm losing it already. So it's really good to know that. I am a friend to an 80-year-old and he has 20% heart functioning. And I started to notice a little confusion about things when up to this date, he's like so sharp. So could it be the fact his heart isn't working so well sometimes? So I need to be aware of that, not that he's
Right, be
changing
aware
in
of
his
that.
head.
Because every organ of the body needs adequate blood flow
Oxygen.
to really do its job well. And right, the blood flow brings the oxygen. And so depending on why his heart is not functioning, you might find that he does better at times when he's more relaxed, because emotional stress also causes our sympathetic nervous system to kick in, which makes our heart try to go harder and faster, and makes our veins and arteries squeeze together, which makes our kidneys work even harder. So it could be that when he's more relaxed, he can at least optimize the oxygen to his brain and be able to think more clearly than when he's, anxious about something. Or it's also really hard when people realize they're not thinking at their best. That
It
there's
scares you.
It's scary. It can cause all the stages of grief when you realize that you don't have some of those faculties that you've always had and relied upon. So again, him finding ways to manage, just be in his most calm state. I'm sure he's on a number of different medications, and all of those are designed to regulate his sympathetic response so that his heart can't overdo it, which would be dangerous in a heart that's not functioning properly. So I'm sure he's on some medicine that's sort of controlling how hard and fast it can beat. Probably medicines that are keeping those veins and arteries more open and not letting them clench down. Probably medicines that are protecting his kidneys and allowing them to function properly rather than overreact to the demand that they're receiving. So staying on his medicines and make sure he's at all of his doctor visits so that they can be making adjustments is probably one of the best things he can do to optimize that blood flow to his brain.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. Any other questions or thoughts?
There's a lot to this.
Can I ask, what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's?
Oh, that's a great question. So dementia is like a blanket term of all sorts of ways that people have cognitive decline. And Alzheimer's is one type of dementia. Some other more common ones, there's a dementia that can go along with Parkinson's disease. There's Lewy body dementia, which is yet another way that the brain can deteriorate over time. And then if sometimes when people have strokes or even TIAs, like mini strokes over time, that each time that part of the brain is damaged, the mental capacity goes down a little bit. And so with each successive stroke, it gets a little bit worse. That sometimes can look a little bit like Alzheimer's, but it's more based on strokes. So dementia is all the different ways that cognitive decline can happen. Alzheimer's is a very specific process that is still, there's so much research trying to fully understand it. We could actually spend a session or several sessions on that alone, but there are some promising new medications coming along, some new techniques to try to, I think they're most designed to try to slow down that process, but we have a mismatch at the moment. We don't diagnose it until it's pretty far advanced currently with our current systems. But the medications would be most effective if we could catch it long before we do. So two things are going on, trying to find therapies that really could work early and keep people from progressing all the way into Alzheimer's. But then also a lot of work is being done to how can we identify it much, much earlier so that those medicines could be used and not allow it to get worse. So I'm with you. I'd love for them to get that figured out real soon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's it.
chance.
That's so interesting that you say it could be medications or supplements, because I'm not on any medications, but I never thought, well, could I be taking too much vitamin K or vitamin D or whatever vitamins I take?
I had a now this is not a memory example, but it's just an example of vitamins. There was a gentleman who was he was a patient at a big geriatric clinic. Like we had everybody. You'd come in and you'd get a thorough evaluation from like 8 different types of providers. He had been through the whole process. He was having diarrhea. He couldn't control his bowels. So he was becoming more and more isolated from everybody. He was afraid to go out with friends. He was afraid to go out with family. He wouldn't go anywhere. And we know that that's really hard on us to be isolated. And went through all of his medicines. It wasn't that. He had some cancer and radiation. And so there was a lot of research being done. Was that the cause? But it didn't seem to be. Finally, he shared with us, and he didn't the first several times we evaluated him. He shared with us that he was taking some vitamins he had ordered over a commercial he'd seen on television. And there are some vitamins that if we take too much, our body just clears it out, right? It just goes out with our urine usually. But there are some that we can hang on to. And he had too much of one of those. In his case, it was vitamin A. And once we reduced the vitamin A, he had perfect bowel control. He could go and do things again. But he had lost so much time not sharing that he was taking this vitamin concoction, and that was causing the toxicity that led to his problem.
How did you find that out? Did you eliminate things, I guess?
He finally trusted us enough to tell us about the vitamins that he was taking. And then once we saw the different vitamins, we realized there was way too much vitamin A, and that vitamin A can cause that problem. And so got him to reduce that, and he was okay.
Very good.
But it took him a while to choose to tell us the thing. Sometimes people feel like, well, the things I take on my own that I choose that you don't prescribe for me, that's my business.
Right.
But all of it can interact with the prescriptions and cause problems like his vitamin A did.
Yeah. Which reminds me of that. Did you ever watch House? People
Yes.
lie. That's kind of the thing that they don't tell you that they're taking a vitamin, and they come in with this problem, but they don't want to tell you what that problem was, but they needed to know that. So you're right.
Exactly. And well, stories. I've been in practice a long time. So many stories of that, that if we don't have all of the information and all of the correct information, we're not going to make good decisions on your behalf. Like healthcare can't make good decisions if they don't have the whole story. And so I
Yeah.
know in Propel, that's our first 5 months of Propel's information is how to take control of your health and make sure everybody's got the exact, complete, correct information every time anyone makes a decision about you.
So you're really like a concierge type program. Is that it?
Right. You can access Propel a couple of ways. One is online. You can kind of do it at your own pace. And the other one is work with us directly. So the directly is the really concierge. And the other is just all the things we've learned and that we would tell you if we were working together one-on-one, but you can do it on the computer. We've broken everything down to 3 minutes at a time. So no matter how busy you are, you can gradually go through all of this great information and make sure that you know how to control your health, you know your risk factors, you know what your purpose is going to be in the next phases of your life. You know how to avoid isolation, how to protect your family. It's been really exciting for us to put all of this together to help people to really own their health and have assurance that they can move forward without all the common things that tend to trip people up. Yeah. All right, any other questions or thoughts? Well, we will continue these every second and fourth Wednesday from 12:30 to 1 Eastern time. And let's dive into medication next time and all the many ways that you can manage your own medications and how do you share that information with your healthcare team and why is it so important? And I'll have some stories to share.
Okay,
So
that'd be great.
thank you for your time. Have a
I'll try to
wonderful couple of-
unplug. That's kind of hard.
It is
Okay.
very hard. But it makes a big difference. Even don't have electronics in your bedroom as you're sleeping.
Oh, yeah.
That's a little
No, I
one.
don't.
No.
Or turn off the
Also.
airplane mode for sure.
Yeah. Right.
But
All
being
right.
at this age, you feel like you got to be attached because somebody's going to call late at night.
It's hard.
That's
It
the
is
hard
hard
part.
to walk away from it. It is.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Good to see you
All
all.
right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michelle. Bye.